Hello, my loves. Welcome to my Embody Mondays. I'm Cassandra McAllen. I wasn't going to do a live today because, as you may or may not know, it's National Women's Strike Day, where we are protesting the loss of bodily autonomy when Roe versus Wade was overturned 2 years ago. However, I was having a conversation with a client, and it really made me think about something that I wanted to address with everyone because I think it comes up a lot, especially right now with the unrest that's going on around the world. And that is the difference between judgment and discernment and why it matters. So I was having this conversation with a client, and they were talking about something they found out about a friend that caused them to have a great deal of judgment come up. They felt that their friend's thoughts or position, if you will, was unjust and maybe even unethical. In other words, it completely contradicted their personal feelings about how someone should treat a particular issue, and they really had a problem with it. However, in this instant, the situation was beyond conversation because the person had passed, and it was something they found out after they had passed. So when I was talking to them, I first began by asking them how they felt about the information that they had learned about someone they thought they knew very well. And this was contrary to how they would have seen them or what they believed they would have thought. And when they sunk in to this feeling, they acknowledged that it didn't feel good, that it made them very unhappy. And there's really no place to put that unhappiness. So it's kind of a stark contrast, right? We're in a place of judgment, and there's no place to put it. There's no one to talk about it with. There's no one to convince our side is right. And so what ends up happening is, just like remorseful or regretful or angry thoughts we might have about someone we've lost in our lives, there's nowhere for that energy to go other than inside us, right? For us to stew on it, to ruminate on it, to imagine what we would have said, imagine what we could have done, imagine what they should have said or they should have done. And in reality, because that energy is transmuted into pure light instead of form, there's no here on earth conversation to have. There's nowhere for us to put that energy of frustration, irritation, aggression, resentment anywhere other than ourselves. And so I thought it was a really good example of what judgment does to us, because having judgment for people is really just a way that we self-harm. It doesn't change the person. It doesn't change the situation in any way. It just makes us unhappy. And anytime you've held judgment, and, of course, it's difficult not to do, you know that it just hurt you. And you maybe thought of all the things you wanted to do differently or say differently, or you wanted someone to just be freaking different. And most of the time, it doesn't change. It doesn't change what the person believes. It doesn't change what the person thinks. And even if you're so certain you're right, and this person believes completely differently than you, therefore they must be wrong, right? That doesn't actually change anything. It just makes, well, you miserable. And often, likely, if you refuse to step down from this place of judgment, this place of rightness, it makes the friendship difficult. I was thinking about a friend I have who believes completely differently than me on a couple of very core issues. And I happen to say, unrelated to her today, knowing you as I do, there is nothing that you could do or say that would make me stop loving you. And it's true. even though they have belief systems that completely differ from mine. And it really has to do from where we're getting our information. Judgment arises from a difference of the ability to view something. So it really helps to have an understanding of something I like to call as the difference between lateral and vertical sourcing. So what does this mean? Well, sourcing refers to how we get all the information that has created who we are. So from the very beginning, the information that we gleaned from our parents, either through their words or their actions, to the information that we got from our friends, from our teachers, from our coaches, from the people we study with, from the people in our office place, from the people in our community, to the people in our city, to the people in our state, to the information we get from the news or the media that we listen to, that we follow. This information is all lateral sourcing, and that even includes the books we read. We're receiving information from those around us. In other words, it's other people's thoughts. It's other people's belief systems. It's other people's knowledge. It's not our own until we decide to make it so. Until our thoughts that we think a lot become our beliefs that we then hold strongly to until we become certain that nothing else is right. And this sourcing material that we get creates huge differences in cultures, in environment. It's affected by everything around us, this lateral sourcing. And this is why countries right next to each other can have completely different ideologies, completely different belief systems, completely different political issues that they are struggling before or against, and on and on. And this is why not just countries, but states. I mean, wouldn't it make sense if everyone who was a US citizen all thought the same? I mean, certainly there would be small variances, but the large variances, the ginormous variances, how could that exist? We're all US citizens. Well, it's because different states have their own kind of preferential lateral sourcing. They have their own information that these people in general public are receiving from those around them, their own belief systems, their own truths. Even cities in the same state. You probably know cities that you can think of off the top of your head that you would think are blue or red. In other words, completely different political ideologies. Cities right next to each other. There's no dividing line. How is this possible? Well, because people gravitate to other people that agree with them, that are like-minded, right? We have cognitive biases to want people around us that think like we do. We don't want to be around people that are wrong, that are stupid, that don't know any better. And so we tend to pool together around people that think like us, which of course makes this sourcing environment that we're in even more narrowed and refined or defined by the belief systems that the people around us hold, the people that we listen to, the podcasts, the news reporters, the radio stations, the books that we read, our neighbors that we talk to. People tend to unconsciously cluster together amongst other like-minded people until you can have these areas of small townships that differ from ones that are just one street over. So this is an example of lateral sourcing. And why is it important? Why is how we get information and how we believe what we believe important? Well, because the more finite these beliefs become, the more restricted we become, right? I like to say that rigidity equals fragility. The more rigid you are in your belief systems, the more fragile you are when someone disagrees with them. The more irate you become when you have a conversation with or you see someone acting in a way that is completely wrong by your belief. So other than this kind of lateral sourcing that we do, the other way we source is vertical. Now, here's where I'm going to get a little metaphysical for those of you that are science-minded. This can feel a little stretchy, but just breathe into it. Ask how your body feels when I'm talking. See if it feels like, I can connect to that. Or if it feels like, I don't really know. Or if it feels like, absolutely not true. And that's always wise to do when you are receiving information from a lateral source. So vertical sourcing is where you as an individual are checking in with your body and its response to the information that you are receiving, that you are taking in, whether that's a scroll on social media, or whether that's a book, or whether that's a friend, or any other version of lateral sourcing, basically someone else's thoughts, okay? Check in with your body. Breathe into it, especially if it feels sticky, if it has an edge to it, if it makes you go, I don't like hearing that. Check in. Why don't you like it? Do you not like it because it feels wrong? Well, that's important to pay attention to. Or do you not like it because it disagrees with something that you held to be true? Well, it's a little different. Maybe something to look at. Another way to vertical source is to check into your connection to source. So what is that? Well, it could be your intuition. It could be your higher self, your inner guidance. It could be your God, your goddess, your avatar, your angel. It could be your connection to the universe as a whole, your connection to source, to spirit, to light, to energy, because that's where the truth lies. That's where your truth can be found. So it's not just a recitation of your dad's or your husband's or your boss's or someone else you know. So how you can find your truth and what's important to you is by listening to that quiet inner voice. That voice that perhaps has told you more than once throughout your life, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't participate in that. That's not a good thing. Or maybe it's told you, you know what? It's time to go for a drive. Yeah, just get in the car and drive. Or you should go up and talk to that person. Just go have a conversation. I know maybe you wouldn't normally, but do it. Go talk to him. Go find out about him. Or anything else where you felt this pull inside of yourself to connect with something that is greater than the thoughts of others, that is connected to you. Maybe it's a feel in your energy system or your chakras. Maybe it's a tingling in your fingers or heat in your chest. I have a client that when she's really feeling her truth, she's like, okay, my chest is getting hot. My heart is getting hot, right? Or someone else might say, oh, I got chills. Have you ever done that? You heard something or you said something or you felt something inside and you thought to yourself, oh my God, chills all over my body, total chills. Well, those chilblains or those willies are often a sign that your nervous system is recognizing there's some truth being spoken. You should listen. Now, if you like to get a little crazier with me, well, then we can talk about the gifts that come from connecting directly to your guides. So what are guides? Well, guides can be any energies that you personally believe in, that you connect with, that you believe are true. That could be someone that's passed on. That could be a deity that you hold in faith. That could be your connection with your higher self, with the vortex, with the energy of all things, the powers that be. For me, I have a council of a number of different deities that I connect with, Christ being one of them, but not the only one. I also have a deep connection with what I refer to as my higher self. And my higher self is that energy that is primarily I, but not embodied, not incarnate. So if you think about our physical beings being a combination of energy and particle, or light and matter, then only a very small percentage, the Cassandra one, is actually in this form. The rest of me is, the whole of the iceberg below just the tip that you see. So when you actively work to quiet your mind, you begin to hear the energy thoughts, if you will, from your higher self, from your connected self, from your spiritual self, from your sourced self, or whatever term it is that you like. So there's another plug for meditation. So why is this important? Well, because so much of our lives we spend laterally sourcing. We only know, if you think about it, it's kind of scary, what someone else told us. Yeah, that's where you're getting your truth. What someone else has told you is truth. So that's fine. That's our primary form of knowledge, for sure. But what if there are truths outside of the information that you've allowed yourself to receive? You're not receiving that. And how do you know? Because what it does is only receiving what you already know to be true keeps you believing the same thoughts you thought yesterday, which means you keep being the same person you were yesterday, which means there's no growth there for you. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and as I'm talking with a family member, they're challenging my perception about something, and I'm not open to it. I am firmly and finitely denying that I could ever do what they suggest. I explain to them that's simply not who I am. That is not within the person I know myself to be. And they are loving, maybe knowing I'm being a bit closed-minded in this issue they're brushing against, but they lovingly say, okay, yeah, that's great. That's fine. And I end the call and I feel a little righteous. Like I told them, I know me. I know who I am. Then the next day I'm driving to work and I am thinking about the conversation. And I am trying to be connected, as I always am, 24/7. And I hear in my head, and that's how I think of it, is the difference between thinking thoughts and hearing thoughts. I hear in my head, as I'm replaying this conversation in my mind, you're a liar. What? You lied. I am now very surprised and confused because I'm being told by myself that I lied to someone, and I have no idea what I could have lied about. And then spirit or source downloads to me a broader vision of the truth. And that in fact, the excuse I was using to believe what I believed was based on the memories that I was holding in my forebrain. And spirit was delightfully providing memories that I had forgotten. Totally disagreeing with what I said. It's kind of like I said, I've never done that. I would never do that thing. And everything in me in that moment believed that to be true. And when I stepped outside of my egoic self, spirit was like, liar, you've freaking totally done that. And when I heard that, I was shocked and a bit frustrated at myself that I had let myself think and repeat the same thoughts so often that they became beliefs that could not be argued. When in reality, I had had experience that did contradict those belief systems. In fact, I had experiences that were way outside what that person having that conversation would have said. So another reason to keep connected and to work on listening is so you can get a fuller view of the totality of you. And so you can continue to make these subtle cognitive changes and open up these neural pathways. So the person you are tomorrow is not the person you are today. It's hugely valuable. You know, I met a friend the other day that I had not seen in years. And when I started talking to them and they started describing their life, all I could think of was, that's the exact same freaking life you lived all those years ago. And when they started talking about their belief systems, I could think, you're the same person. And so I had to say something to them like, wow, that's exactly what I would have said you would have said. That's exactly what I would have said you would have done. Like, have you ever thought about getting out of bed on the wrong side, brushing your teeth with the left hand, driving a different way to work, listening to something you normally wouldn't, read something that you normally wouldn't, something to create neural pathways that are different than the ones that you already hold so that you can see who you can become? Because it might be greater than who you think yourself to be now. Could be. In the instance I just had of Spirit calling me a liar, I'm really grateful because it did open me up and make me realize that I am greater than the restricted, constricted view that I was selling on the phone. The other thing I wanted to say is, circling back to judgment, for those of you that feel that you have to be judgmental or that you cannot stop having judgment about other people or other situations or things that you disagree with, I offer a different view. Instead of judgment, which again, we already agreed only hurts us, as we, have a stone, we want to throw it that wrong person that's just burning us while we hold it. How about discernment? Discernment is knowing something is not right for you versus demanding that it not be right for someone else. And when you have discernment, what immediately happens is you hear or see or read something that you don't agree with, and you open your mind and you think, yeah, you take it in and you're like, yeah, that's not for me. And then that immediately redirects you to what it is you do want. So instead of being in judgment and focusing on all the things you don't, and God, how can they think this? And how can they believe this? And how can they say this? You let that go. You let the person be who they are. You allow them to be a human, having human experiences and being affected by their own lateral sourcing to the point where they absolutely believe what they believe because the information they've taken in validates it 100%. And you can then instead decide what you want to believe and focus on that. And now you've shifted your energy away from this internal kind of contrast and frustration into a desire to have more of what it is you like, to hear more about what it is you want, to participate more in things that really make you feel enlightened. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And yeah, I know I've done this very strangely. I'm not doing it live. I mean, I am live, but I'm just live with me. But I'm going to post it there. And if you guys want to make comments, you can. But again, this was up for me, so I wanted to share it with you. So I love you all. I hope you have a magnificent day. And for those women out there, if you can't stay home, wear red. And if you can't stay home, do it. I'm here with you, sister. And for everyone else, I love you. Bye.